2. Liftoff.
Think only astronauts have the right stuff? Before the space shuttle can reach the heavens,
All right, AP's loose. I got the simulator.
these guys have got to go through hell.
What scares you the most about the job?
Screwing up.
Coming up, Richie.
No room to work,
Stop, all stop.
What happened, Jack?
no room for error.
Come on back to the right.
An unprecedented look at an American icon, the Space Shuttle. From touchdown to takeoff.
This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 2 hours, 31 minutes, 25 seconds and counting.
Hi, Steve. Good afternoon.
It seems so familiar,
And they are all reporting that they are go for launch. All elements are reporting in.
so predictable.
At about 7:40 a.m. today, the crew woke up. They were served breakfast at around 8 a.m.
A crew of astronauts, anonymous to most of us.
People stopped being able to recognize me.
Who's that guy?
Hey.
Space Shuttle Discovery stands poised for liftoff from pad 39A.
A space shuttle on the launch pad.
This is not easy to do. You almost have to turn yourself into a pretzel to get in.
The launch team plugged in
Do you want to set up for continuous water drain?
Yes, we're going to need to.
and vigilant.
You please start is complete. I have 3 gray contacts.
The milestones passing like, well, clockwork.
At T-minus 3 hours and holding this at T-minus 2 hours,
Counting
57
now
minutes.
less than 1 hour on the countdown.
It all looks so routine.
Well, they've been training as a crew for almost 3 years.
A ritual I knew by rote. Or so I thought.
The beanie cap is actually the gaseous oxygen vent hood.
From my perch on the press mound not far from the pad, I've confidently told the world about the latest departure of humans from our planet. It's my job.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't have a little twirly thing on the top. I was cocky enough to think I knew the drill, but now I know different. I asked the folks at NASA if they would show me what really happens between the launches. And after a good deal of convincing, they agreed to open up the hangar doors. For 10 months, we followed one orbiter every step of the way as she was prepared for flight. And now I know how little I knew about what it takes to launch a shuttle.
Get ready to rock and roll, guys. Let's just go for auto sequence start.
Throttling.
2 and auto.
30 years after it was first envisioned, it is still an icon to American technological prowess.
Thanks, Tom. It was beautiful.
Somebody wrote a problem report on this.
But beneath the surface, it is a vehicle riding on borrowed time.
I said, them vendors don't make that stuff anymore. The airlines don't fly that old junk anymore.
I wish it'd work a little quicker.
It was sold on the promise it would deliver cheap and easy access to space, but has never come close.
And this is called a SNIRT.
A SNIRT.
Right. Which means schedule never equals real time.
Remaining a finicky beast that demands attention like a spoiled child.
I think it's going to have to come off back there first.
It is understood well by the people who make it fly,
Righty, toddy, lefty, loosey, Jack.
and yet they live in fear of its secrets, its hidden flaws.
I think in the back of everyone's mind, they're always thinking, you know, if something happens at the last minute, will we be able to recover?
20 years ago, they predicted it would be in the Smithsonian by now, and yet it flies on with no replacement in sight. And it is left to a handful of dedicated people to keep it going, knowing anything less than perfection means disaster.
What scares you the most about the job?
Screwing up.
This is their story. We begin where we normally leave off, at the end of a shuttle mission.
Yeah, 304, 304, 304, all the way around.
What goes up must come down, and in this case, we're talking down with a vengeance.
Man, that's the heaviest 1G I've ever felt. Yep, it gets worse.
A shuttle's free fall from space is a slam-dunk Newtonian moment, a blazing, precipitous, perilous, irrevocable dive toward terra firma.
Discovery copies, go for the deorbit burn. I'm going to the burn card.
December 27th, 1999. Welcome to the flight deck of the Space Shuttle Discovery, 15 years old, on her 27th voyage, 119 circumnavigations of the globe behind her.
Okay, Houston, we have the runway in sight.
Little more than an hour after the crew nudged Discovery out of orbit over the Indian Ocean, They were knocking on the door at home on the shores of the Atlantic.
10 feet at 192.6 touchdown. Chute's coming.
Post landing, guys. Do me one favor, let's not lose our concentration here and screw it up at the last minute. This is when everybody kind of gets silly.
The convoy crew started rolling even before Discovery's long deceleration petered out.
Rain during, please.
But the ground crew draws near with a healthy dose of caution.
You've got to go for your safety assessment.
An orbiter is brimming with a witch's brew of toxic, hazardous chemicals and explosives.
We have the possibility of encountering hazardous gases and vapors of hydrogen, ammonia, hydrazine.
Call 2, Perch 2, OMD.
Like a critical patient just wheeled into an emergency room, Discovery is quickly attached to life support, umbilicals that purge hazardous gases and keep the crew and equipment from overheating.
I am here as part of the orbiter landing recovery team, and specifically my job is to get the big picture.
NASA engineer Greg Katnick spends much of his tarmac time scrutinizing the heat-deflecting and insulating tiles that cover much of the orbiter. Without them, the aluminum skin that lies beneath would become soup during the 2,300-degree re-entry. Katnick counts 153 dings, 24 of them an inch or larger. Overall, Discovery fared well during her 3-million-mile journey, with one big exception. A tile is missing on the right wing, on a flap called an elevon.
Obviously, that's unusual. We're going to look into it, we're going to assess it, find out why that happened.
It is only one of Discovery's 24,000 tiles, and yet its void quickly becomes a focal point.
You don't need them all. It happens every now and then. Well, we don't like losing them.
But that's more false bravado than technical reality. Astronaut Scott Kelly and everyone else here knows the loss of a single tile in a critical location means disaster.
We like to fly a perfect vehicle, so we're going to find out why it happened and check it and make a change if we need to.
A perfect vehicle.
PLPU operator, all 3 switches verified off.
1 million parts, 230 miles of wires.
All 3 helium interconnect, verified GPC.
1,060 plumbing valves and connections, all of it must be perfect.
Orbiter is moving.
3 miles down the road lies a gleaming, spotless, climate-controlled hangar. Orbiter Processing Facility Number 1, the OPF, the tailor-made womb where the orbiter will be nurtured back to readiness for another flight.
Nice and slow.
It's a glove fit, only an inch of leeway in any direction.
Go about a ½ inch off. You need to come back to the left, Bob. Slow up, you go, slow up, slow up. You're right on right there. Thinking no closer than that, guys.
Discovery's long journey in space is over. Discovery's long journey back to space has begun.
We're there. That's it.
Depending on how it goes, I may try to catch the red eye Friday night.
You've got to get up at an ungodly hour when it's your job to hurtle humans to the heavens.
I gotta go to work. Why am I still sitting here?
It's just a skosh after 4 o'clock, and Gene Nurnberg is up and already restless to get at the job that has consumed him for 40 years.
Bye,
sweetie.
Gene Nurnberg started out here readying Apollo spacecraft for moonshots. More than 20 years ago, he got the first space shuttle, Columbia, ready for her first flight. Today, he is still at it.
I don't care that I haven't been promoted in 35 years. Already got the best job in the world, literally. If you're here early enough, they haven't done this distribution yet. Here's the master log if you really want to find out what happened last night.
He manages what NASA calls the flow.
They call me Dad just to tweak me. That feels kind of good. You got to keep it as tightly orchestrated as you can.
The 1.2 million step minuet.
Let me show you something.
Of maintenance, refurbishment.
They get refurbished every flight.
Repair, checks.
We discovered some tarnished blankets.
Double checks and still more checks.
We have a criteria that says after 8 flights you change it.
That render a space shuttle ready for another ride.
Let's go on up here a minute.
Most days, he begins with a solitary hangar tour, a walk around, up, over, and through the multi-tiered maze of scaffolding that envelops Discovery.
It's not complicated rocket science, but you do need to kind of keep track of all of the things that are going on.
It's not rocket science, huh?
No, it's just, you know, this thing and that thing and keep it in order. That's not rocket science. What time is it?
The wee hours walk around serves him well as he retreats to the offices upstairs.
I am right. We are late. We started this 5 minutes ago.
Where Discovery's day is choreographed in a series of meetings that grow larger as the clock unwinds.
Buddy was going to look at taking that off with buckets, but when he looks, I don't think he wants to do it anyway. So we will do the APU Connectscape tomorrow. Good job, though. That tape trick was nice work between you and the shop guys.
It might surprise you to know there are only a few NASA supervisors on this team. Most everyone in this room works for the space agency's prime shuttle contractor, the United Space Alliance, USA.
What we're working right now is we have Dispo to go repair the 4 blankets.
It's a joint venture of aerospace giants Boeing and Lockheed Martin. Since 1996, NASA has paid USA $1.1 billion a year to keep the shuttle fleet flying.
And we will not pull the pressure down with the radiators in the position that they're in. We'll wait till that issue's behind us.
But nothing comes easy or fast where the rubber meets the road in the 30,000 square foot climate-controlled orbital processing facility.
Got to go around that way.
From stem to stern, the good ship Discovery presents all kinds of obstacles for the hands-on workforce.
I'm going to get you a good view, but the best you can do in here.
Mike DiCarlo is on the team that works beneath Discovery's tail.
And we'll be in the tightest spot in here just to get the bolts out of this thing.
Step into his office, the aft compartment, and you are instantly privy to the worldview of a mouse under the hood of a car.
You can stand on anything yellow. The struts, like these struts are okay. They're pretty strong.
This is clearly the business end of Discovery, where the 3 main engines are attached and where a lot of other critical components live. Hence the plumbing and wiring spaghetti.
It's a lot of monkeying around in here when you got to get something done in here. As you can see the way we crawled back in here. Right here, I got it. Everybody get out and get in position.
The innocuous-looking piece of hardware they are removing is an auxiliary power unit, a crucial device that keeps Discovery's controls running during landing. The price tag for a new unit, $3 million.
The first time I had sweaty palms, and I'm like, we need to put this down. I gotta put this down right now. That's what they call the pizza plate.
What does that do for you?
This is the stand it'll just sit on. Makes it easier to handle. This is the Ab Bay 5. You learn ways in and out. It wasn't meant to be worked on like we do. Yeah. I don't think the engines were designed to come out as often as they do, and a lot of other things. It's not mechanic friendly.
At the other end of the orbiter, in the forward shop, spacecraft operator Lisa Davis would second that motion.
My first impression was that it was a lot smaller inside than I thought, from what I'd seen on TV and pictures.
Here they do windows, the old-fashioned way.
We try to do it every 10, 15-minute segments.
The forward windows, used by the commander and pilot, get between 60 and 80 hours of elbow grease to remove the haze left by rocket plumes during launch. The goal? Give the crew the clearest possible view of the runway at mission's end.
It is very labor-intensive, but it does work.
You may wonder, as I did, if there isn't a more, well, space-age way to get the job done.
And the problem with using buffers is that there could be a situation where if a particle of debris were to get onto the glass, we might not have the feel of that being underneath that buffing pad and could possibly scratch a window. We want to do things very safely, and sometimes the old way is the safest way.
If you like rare birds, this is the place to be. Ringed by fences, aggressively patrolled for trespassers, and beyond the reach of Florida's relentless developers, the 140,000-acre Kennedy Space Center is a safe haven for all sorts of endangered species. In fact, skimming through the maze of waterways that slice through the mangroves, it's easy to forget where you are. And then, in an instant, you are reminded. Looming 525 feet above the water, the Vehicle Assembly Building, one of the largest buildings on the planet, built during the space race to hold 4 of NASA's mighty moonships. Today, it is the nexus of a small city of hangars, offices, labs, and workshops built to coddle the rarest birds of all, NASA's quartet of Space Shuttle orbiters.
I'm going to say yes, and I'll verify that.
That's your final answer.
That's my final answer.
Colleen Adams knows what it's like to be a rarity.
Being a female is always difficult. I mean, when you're in a working environment, this is basically a male-dominated field.
After 17 years of hard work and hard knocks in and around space shuttles,
you've got to be good at what you do and march forward.
She is one of Gene Nurnberg's chief lieutenants, and as such is the highest-ranking woman in the orbiter processing facility.
We have training classes, a lot of training classes.
She is in charge of the so-called mid-body, the shuttle's payload bay.
You tape and tether your glasses. You don't want your glasses falling down into the orbiter.
This time around, her job is to pack Discovery's trunk with some new pieces for the budding space station.
And he's looking into it.
She spends a good part of her day angling for resources, navigating a complex maze of competing chores.
Do you guys have anything that's portable? You got a second? I don't know if it's 1 or 2. This is the hardest part, pulling it all together and saying you're done. Thank you very much.
Spend a little time with Colleen and you wonder how anything ever gets done in this Byzantine world.
Jeez, yeah, that's a lot of signatures.
It's like 12 signatures to
oh my God.
Sandpaper.
To get procedures changed so she could repair a part in a lab across the hall, she had to round up a dozen signatures.
I mean, that seems a little excessive.
Well, I think it's more everybody wants to know what's happening with this equipment. If you weren't in a time constraint, it would be great because this is like a tool.
It is the most heavily used tool of all.
Paper trail. It's a paper trail.
Whatever the action, every precisely prescribed step of the way, there is a reaction of signatures and stamps on detailed checklists, first by the lead worker, then by a quality inspector from shuttle contractor United Space Alliance, and then, if it's a critical piece of flight hardware, a NASA inspector also buys the paper, as they say. The running joke, a shuttle is considered ready for launch once the stack of paperwork would stand just as high as the rocket.
We're working it until it goes away. And when it goes away, that'll be a good thing.
After Challenger, we put a whole bunch, we put a lot of layers in the system to protect ourselves. And those layers were necessary because we found a lot of weaknesses in our process. And we probably overcompensated for it.
Slowly but steadily, Discovery's secrets peel away as technicians remove panels and pieces large and small. Beneath the orbiter, the thermal protection team is busy inspecting, tagging, patching, and replacing damaged tiles.
So we drill them off, snap the head off, then drive the rest of the rivet back in.
Technician Dennis Hefner sets up shop beneath Discovery's right wing. He begins repairing the bare aluminum that was scorched after the missing tile came loose.
The paperwork is very intense. In an 8-hour day, we'll work 6 hours of paperwork to get 2 hours of work done.
While Dennis works,
They're the kind of views that only an engineer can love, I guess.
some shuttle gumshoes are all over the case of the missing tile.
We always have to worry about some kind of debris hit on the vehicle that actually impacted a tile and fractured it and caused it to fall off. That's what we're really worried about.
It is Greg Katnick's job to pour through the reams of high-speed close-up movies that capture Discovery's fiery trip to orbit in stunning detail.
Here's another interesting feature. We watch the body flap, and you can see that there's a little bit of movement to it. You've actually got to treat everything on the vehicle like it is the most significant part of the vehicle. You never know when the smallest thing might end up being the most catastrophic. I mean, whoever thought a simple little O-ring inside a booster would do what it did?
It was a leaky O-ring that sparked the Challenger explosion.
So one little tile in one little location actually has far-reaching consequences and causes us to go actually do a very big investigation.
But the engineering films do not capture a smoking tile, if you will, leading Katnick to surmise it probably fell off during Discovery's return from space.
As long as I don't see anything square with straight edges tumbling, that might be a tile. Everything looks good.
Across the street, at the place where they make those tiles, engineer Mark Bray is doing an experiment to see how the tile was bonded to Discovery's skin. The missing article is one of the larger, more complex tiles, a problem child.
What concerns us is that if this one had been maybe 4 or 5 tile in front of it and around the hydraulic lines, we might be talking about a whole nother scenario today. You're talking about basically the astronaut crew not being able to make it back home.
We do maintain a large inventory of the materials that we need.
Martin Wilson is the man in charge at the Thermal Protection System facility. Here they mix, bake, mill, and coat about 1,000 tiles a year to keep the shuttle fleet flying.
This is what?
That's the raw material.
This is the raw material.
The ceramic tiles are made mostly of silica, essentially highly refined sand.
What's the temperature in there right now, Martin?
300.
They shed heat faster than a speeding shuttle. Safe to touch a few seconds after they come out of a 2,200-degree kiln.
How does it feel like?
Hot.
High maintenance as they may be, they are probably the single greatest technological achievement of the shuttle program.
To be honest, you have to give credit to the people in the 60s and 70s who actually invented this stuff, that nobody up to this point has really come up with anything better.
Which is an amazing statement when you consider the history of the space shuttle.
Was the shuttle way ahead of its time?
No, on the contrary, I think we used the technology that we had in the 70s to build that machine, and we were conservative.
Because they had to be. Former NASA flight director and manager Chris Kraft was there, still lording over the Apollo missions, when the grandiose gold-plated ideas for what next began circulating.
There are 38 main thrusters.
Many hope for a three-pronged approach. Manned missions to Mars, staged at a space station orbiting the Earth, built and serviced by a reusable spacecraft.
The United States can no longer afford the luxury of the throwaway rocket. Our answer to this challenge is the Space Shuttle, the world's first reusable spacecraft.
That wasn't in the cards, so the management of NASA decided, well, what can we do? What will the budget allow?
It allowed for only one idea at a time. NASA had no choice. Without a vehicle to get humans off the planet, the rest of the plan was academic. So NASA managers started making some big promises. They pitched it as a machine that could operate like an airliner, a flight every 2 weeks, cheap, easy, even profitable access to space.
And I think it was overly aggressive, and I think we were overly optimistic about what the amount of things that were going to fly in space. But I think that's what it took to sell it.
3, 2, 1.
It was a road to ruin for NASA. The agency tried desperately to live up to its own hype, launching shuttles at a frenetic pace.
We have SRB ignition. We have ignition of the solid rocket booster. And liftoff. 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 The shuttle has cleared the tower.
Engines throttling up. 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
Flight controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction.
And then 73 seconds after the 25th shuttle launch, the Challenger exploded, shattering the myth of easy access to space.
That's the first thing that went through my mind was, my God, I hope it's nothing that we did on the pad.
The shuttle program would never be the same.
We have a report from the flight dynamics officer that the vehicle has exploded.
And neither would the people who were there.
I have trouble going back to that. It's just because it was so traumatic and because you know some of those guys personally. I don't think about it as much as I probably should.
We are looking at checking with the recovery forces to see what can be done at this point.
We all watched it. America watched it. Everybody saw it. And it's like, you go, gotta be careful. It's worth it.
Astronauts may get all the glory, but they sure don't have the market cornered on risk in the space business. Mike DiCarlo is suiting up for the harsh environment on the ground, inside the Space Shuttle Discovery.
Tight fit. No fuel and nothing gets in past the glove.
He is donning, ever so methodically, a scape suit, a seemingly dyslexic acronym for Self-Contained Atmospheric Protective Ensemble.
You ready? We're ready.
Well, the blue ones we call Gumby suits. Gumby!
Do you want me to turn this way?
No leaks. SCAPE is the mandatory dress code whenever orbiter technicians work on parts of Discovery that contain hypergolic chemicals, meaning they instantly explode when mixed. It's a clever, reliable way to fuel rocket thrusters in space, but a real nightmare to work with on the ground.
How do you do any work in this suit?
It's tough, but we can do it.
The bottom line is exposure can kill you. That's why we wear these suits.
During this SCAPE operation, the crew will install a new auxiliary power unit. It means working on some plumbing that might carry traces of hydrazine, a highly toxic, corrosive, hypergolic chemical.
Yeah, it's went a little too much.
If NASA had its way, this scene would not be happening at all. The agency would like the money to replace the old hydrazine power units with state-of-the-art batteries. No special attire required. Matter of fact, there is a long wish list of upgrades to some of the shuttle's most antiquated, high-maintenance systems, and there are plenty of them. The shelves at the supply depots are chock-a-block with 1970s technological time capsules. And the testing equipment in this avionics lab would fit well in a computer museum. Here, engineers get their ticket punched on trailing-edge technology. Over the years, more than 3,000 suppliers have stopped making parts for the shuttle fleet.
Obviously, it wasn't a good idea.
It's a big problem for shuttle program manager Ron Dittemore.
Every day is another opportunity because something's awry, something's amiss. A part broke, needs analysis.
NASA built its shuttle fleet to last 400 missions. Initially, the agency expected to log those flights in 10 years. But 2 decades later, the orbiters still have more than 300 flights left in them. They are running a marathon with a sprinter's strategy.
Up to this point, it's been kind of a very short-term approach. Make the decisions you need to make to fly for 5 years. And that's very difficult to do. You only work on things that you can solve and implement in a 5-year span.
But now, more than 20 years after the first shuttle launch, the concepts for a new vehicle remain just that. The problem-plagued X-33, touted as a forerunner for a shuttle replacement, was killed this year before it ever got off the ground. It's now dawning on NASA the shuttle fleet will likely fly another 20 years. But that won't be easy or cheap.
You're going to run out of spares. You're going to run out of people that are building the hardware. The hardware will become extremely expensive to build because it's a one-time thing.
From nose to nozzles, NASA has made some gradual improvements. The main engines have been redesigned 3 times. A 4th upgrade is in work. In the cockpit, old gauges are being replaced by computer screens. The boosters are better and the fuel tank lighter. The upgrade budget over the next 5 years, $1.6 billion. But NASA says it's not nearly enough to keep the fleet flying safely for 2 more decades.
No, it's just like any other company. You have to have capital investment to get some gain.
And yet NASA veteran Chris Kraft says NASA's 4 orbiters could be flown more aggressively.
Same thing you do on a 747. When it lands, it goes through an automatic checkout system to determine what systems are working and what systems aren't. And if something's not working, you replace it. And then you go fly it. You got the best information on the performance of the system, of the shuttle, of the orbiter, when it lands. All you have to do is fill it up and go again.
It wasn't designed to be taken apart, every flow that I know of. I think there's places that we shouldn't go and shouldn't do anything with unless it's broke.
One way to do it, Miles, is just say, I'm not going to look. I'm just not going to look. And I hope everything goes okay. I don't think that's a wise steward.
The stewards of the shuttle fleet are conservative because they have to be. Every time they launch, they assume the entire program is on the line, and it probably is. A program that at one time was judged on whether it could meet its own unrealistic launch schedule now really only has one thing to prove, that it is not taking too many risks. And that, more than anything else, serves as a governor over what happens as the calendar and Discovery and her components move toward a launch date.
The solid rocket boosters are carefully inspected. The huge blimp-like external fuel tank is hoisted into place. The three main engines are removed and inspected in a gleaming engine shop.
Pull it up a little further, Joe.
The million-dollar toilet is gingerly hoisted into place. The landing gear cycled. And after months of painstaking preparation, a new tile is glued onto that wing flap. After combing through the old paperwork, engineers determined workers used the wrong size liner when they attached the tile 6 flights ago. This is good news, as there is no reason to suspect a problem that would ground the fleet. And suddenly it occurs to me that pile of paperwork might be worth its weight.
Attach left, please.
Nearly 9 months after she came home to roost, Discovery is ready to leave the orbiter processing facility. It's a milestone moment, slightly bittersweet for the OPF crew.
When you start understanding how the whole thing operates, it becomes a lot more than an orbiter or just a piece of equipment. It becomes something exciting. You know, you're watching it launch and you receive it back, and you know, you get to go through this process. You can see where it got hurt on its journey, you know, and you get to repair it. You know? So it turns into, you know, a living entity.
Bolted on to the 6 million pound rock-crushing crawler, Discovery begins a 3-mile saunter to launch pad 39A, her departure point from Earth. A machine that travels 6 times faster than the speediest rifle bullet never exceeds the pace of a stroll on the beach on the ground. Now that Discovery is standing on end, attached to her tank and boosters, exposed to the elements, the preparation puzzle reaches a new degree of difficulty.
Remember, guys, this is something developing right now.
Jim Vivera is the man in the hot seat when the shuttle world pivots from horizontal to vertical. With 3 weeks left before launch, they are warily watching a hurricane in the Atlantic. Should it dogleg toward the Cape, Discovery would have to crawl for cover, creating a quandary for Vivera.
What we're looking at is integrating a schedule that's moving forward, configuring the vehicle for launch, and protecting a schedule that allows us to move it back off the launch pad. And so some of those activities are at odds with each other.
Vivera is schooled in psychology and the law. Liberal arts meet technical charts.
I'm basically looking at, we might have to factor in a little escape operation. I'm not the boss, I'm the conductor. You know, the orchestra is paid much more than I am. I just kind of point to the brass section, point to the strings. That's it.
There are no launch window cutouts in this launch window.
Meanwhile, the team that orchestrates the countdown and makes the final decision to light Discovery's candles sits down and plugs in.
Okay, I copy that.
To hone their skills.
Currently, the leak out in the storage area is stable at 1.4%. We're not going to take any action until it reaches 3%.
It's a hair-raising simulated countdown in the firing room. It's more than just a drill. They must endure this sim to be certified for the real thing.
We are currently in a no-go state for IPR 5.
Everything is inserted. We got the safing problem inserted, the abort problem is inserted.
Next door, a small team of gremlins led by engineer Mike Cinelli is conjuring up all kinds of simulated mischief. Several serious, simultaneous failures for the launch team to contend with.
That's a fire in the hole, yes.
That tension is real, isn't it?
Oh, it's real. I feel it. And they feel it. I mean, like I said, it's a simulation, but when you're into it, it's real. And you realize you're practicing, because one day you might do that for real.
Is there any further troubleshooting you're going to be required of the crew?
You want to make sure you get it right now, so when it does happen in real life, if it does, you're ready for it and you do it right that time.
Okay, copy that.
If I can handle what happens today during the last 9 minutes and then during abort, I can be
confident that when it comes up time for launch and you have those type issues, I know exactly what I'm going to go do. It's sort of like a textbook case. If you've already seen it, you've already been through that stress. Now on launch day, it's just another day.
Cue the flight crew, and the crescendo begins. The 7 astronauts who will fly to the space station on Discovery drop in from Houston for some dress rehearsals.
5,000, good radar.
Radar.
Commander Brian Duffy and pilot Pam Melroy practice steep dives to the shuttle runway in a Gulfstream business jet rigged to handle like an orbiter.
It is sensitive, but it's not overly sensitive. The last 1,000 feet before landing, I was trying to minimize my input.
300.
I was working to get it set up to land, get it right where I wanted it, get it set up to land, and then let it land.
The entire crew goes to the pad to practice a scenario no one would like to see. A major failure on the ground that forces an emergency evacuation.
3, 2, 1, go.
They practice releasing, though not riding, the slide wire baskets designed to whisk them off the 195-foot level in a hurry. This is the crew's only speedy passage to safety. Space shuttles are not equipped with ejection seats or any kind of automatic crew escape system. They get a quick tour of the blast-proof bunker at the end of the line.
It's important for us, if there are any injuries on anybody, to get that information too.
And some tips on driving their getaway tank.
I think there's an overall awareness of what we're doing and the risk involved that we think about, that the people think about. I mean, it's not, you know, there's no escape system, there's no bailout.
As time draws near, the hurricane has now passed, and the preparations at the pad do not break stride.
Well, we got the O2 meter. We can verify that with the camera.
A big piece of the space station, a truss that will support the station's solar panels, is loaded into the payload bay. Inside the crew module, the cupboards are carefully stocked. And the entire stack is rigged with explosives, the self-destruct system that would be used as a last resort if Discovery veered violently off course, forcing ground controllers to blow up the rocket and all on board.
Power switch is on, ready light is on.
Near the end of this long, arduous, careful process, there remains a deep undercurrent of anxiety. Discovery is layered with backup systems for her backup systems, but everyone here knows the score. NASA estimates 1,660 scenarios where a single failure would cause the catastrophic loss of the vehicle and crew.
Because of Challenger, there's a certain mindset that is very risk averse. In fact, a whole culture is grown up that wants to minimize the risk in everything you do, to the point where they would like it to be zero risk. Well, zero risk would paralyze you.
As it is, it doesn't take much to paralyze a shuttle. Discovery's crew is suited up and on the way, and her fuel tank is boiling over with super cold liquid oxygen and hydrogen. And so, the Icemen cometh. Greg Katnick's ice team is on the prowl for chunks of ice that might damage Discovery during launch. But they're also looking for anything that doesn't look right. In short, after months and months of painstaking work, it is the final inspection.
Uh-oh, I found something I don't like.
It's a 3-inch pin lodged on a strut, far from easy reach.
This is going to be significant, isn't it? I wouldn't say significant, but we have to deal with it.
You cannot assume that a little 8-ounce pin will get away scot-free.
The damage to an engine or the body flap could be severe, and because we did not want to take that risk, we decided to scrub.
287 days after Discovery came home, she would wait at least one more day to fly away. Day 288, October 11th, 2000.
In summary, we have no LCC violations, no OMRS violations, and no IPR conditions. Discovery looks ready to go.
And they'll begin final preparations to ingress Space Shuttle Discovery for the second time
Verify ready, resume the count, say go, no go for launch.
Inside 20 minutes to launch, the phase known as terminal count, Gene Nurnberg and Jim Vivera step outside to take it all in.
I feel good about all of them. I'm nervous about all of them. Okay.
T-minus 2 minutes and 20 seconds and counting.
It's shoot time. Get ready to rock and roll, guys.
10, 9, 8, 7. We have a go for main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery.
2 and up.
The biggest difference between then and the 60s, that first launch, and now, is somehow I don't cry anymore.
These are people that, as a matter of course, every couple of months, put everything on the line, and there's a lot on the line.
Standing by for burnout and separation of the twin solid rocket boosters.
Okay, steps away. A little bit of a roll off from it.
I always wait that 60 seconds after the launch. You can see the boosters falling, and it's like the crowd quiet. It's very, very emotional.
Okay. About 25, 30 seconds to me go. Just take nice, slow, deep breaths.
And you watch those first 2 minutes, and you watch that contrail go up into the sky, lit by the sun, and the solids separate, and you see those main engines going off into the distance. That's the poetry of the process.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Congratulations.
And we got the weekend
You
off.
did it, yeah.
And we got the weekend off. As always. Yeah, that was nice. That's cool. Look, there they are, guys.
Welcome to space and congratulations.
All right. Thanks, Tom. It was beautiful.
Okay, Calvin. Get it back on the ground. Christmas is coming. We got a lot of stuff to do.